You're sitting at a cafe, sipping your coffee, when someone glances at you and says, "You don't look your age." You smile, feeling a bit flattered, but you brush it off. What if I told you that this wasn't just a random compliment? What if that youthful energy you radiate is something much deeper than good genetics or skincare? It's not just how you look, it's about what's happening inside your mind and spirit. Now here's the question: what if you could unlock that same timeless vitality, regardless of where you're starting? Science and philosophy both agree. There's more to staying youthful than we realize. It's not about running from aging, but embracing life with resilience, purpose, and a mindset rooted in wisdom. In today's video, we're diving into some profound insights inspired by Stoic philosophy, backed by modern psychology and neuroscience. You'll learn how reconnecting with nature, living with purpose, and mastering emotional resilience can transform not only your energy, but your entire outlook on life. Ready to explore the secrets to unlocking that ageless spirit? If this resonates with you, like this video and subscribe to Stoic Narratives Official for more insights into personal growth and timeless wisdom. Together, let's discover the light within that keeps you glowing no matter your age. Now, let's begin this incredible journey. Number 1. Reconnecting with nature in a busy world. Man is disturbed not by things, but by the views he takes of them, said Epictetus. These words resonate deeply with anyone who has ever felt overwhelmed by the chaos of modern life. Take him, for example. A man working tirelessly in a crowded city, juggling deadlines and responsibilities. His day starts before dawn, scrolling through emails, and ends long after sunset, staring at spreadsheets. Somewhere along the way, the vibrant energy he once had began to fade. He told himself it was just stress, something everyone deals with. But was it really just that? One weekend, everything changed. A canceled meeting left him with an unexpected free day. Unsure of what to do, he wandered to a park he hadn't visited in years. At first, it felt strange to be away from his phone, with nothing to check and no urgency pulling him. Then, something shifted. He noticed the rustling leaves above him, the way sunlight danced on the grass, and the crisp scent of pine. It wasn't just peaceful, it was invigorating. For the first time in years, he felt present. This wasn't just a break from work, it was a reminder of something ancient and essential. What he didn't know at the time is what science has since proven. Nature does more than relax us. It resets our nervous system, lowers stress hormones, and sharpens our focus. Even just 15 minutes a day in nature can reduce cortisol levels and boost overall well-being. The Stoics, though, didn't need scientific studies to tell them this. They believed in aligning with nature, not just as a physical place, but as a way of understanding life's rhythms. For them, nature represented order and balance and was a teacher of resilience. But here's the twist. As he began visiting the park more regularly, it wasn't just the scenery that healed him, it was the silence. In the absence of city noise, he began hearing his own thoughts more clearly. And at first, that was uncomfortable. The doubts he had buried surfaced, the fears he hadn't addressed whispered in his mind. Yet, in that stillness, he found clarity. He realized that much of his exhaustion came not from his workload, but from the stories he told himself about needing to prove his worth through endless productivity. The Stoics often spoke of self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if thou wilt ever dig." For him, that park became the place where he dug deeper into himself. Each walk wasn't just a retreat, it was a return to the core of what mattered. He learned to let go of what he couldn't control and focus on what he could. His choices, his mindset, and how he showed up in the world. Imagine this, a world where reconnecting with nature doesn't require a dramatic lifestyle change. What if you started small? 15 minutes a day, stepping outside without distractions, letting the breeze remind you to breathe, and the earth beneath your feet around you. Think about how different your evenings might feel if you traded one scrolling session for a moment with the sunset. Could it be that the stillness you've been avoiding holds the peace you've been chasing? Next time you feel the weight of stress pressing down, remember the park. It's not just a place, it's a metaphor for balance. Nature, like Stoic wisdom, reminds us that the chaos we face is fleeting, and our response to it is what shapes us. So ask yourself, When was the last time you truly allowed yourself to be still? Number 2. The energy of purpose, living with meaning in uncertain times. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one, Marcus Aurelius wrote. These words carried an unassuming weight, but their truth struck him like a quiet storm. He wasn't a philosopher or a dreamer. He was an ordinary man caught in the swirl of modern life, with responsibilities that left him feeling more like a passenger than the captain of his ship. Work demanded his attention, his family needed his presence, and somewhere along the way, he had lost his sense of purpose. Sound familiar? One evening, after yet another exhausting day, he found himself aimlessly scrolling through social media. His son approached him with a question. "Why do you always look so tired, Dad?" He laughed it off, because what else could he do? But that question lingered. It wasn't just exhaustion on his face, it was the emptiness of going through the motions. Why was he doing all this? What was the point? And then, out of the blue, he stumbled upon a Stoic reflection. It wasn't profound at first glance, but it had a quiet power. It said, "A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions." That night, he sat with those words. He realized he had been living reactively, letting life dictate his direction rather than steering it himself. What if he could change that? What if, instead of simply existing, he lived with intention? But here's where it got interesting. He decided to start small. Rather than setting a monumental goal, like climbing a mountain, he joked to himself he didn't even own the right boots. He began by waking up 30 minutes earlier each day to write in a journal. Nothing fancy, just his thoughts, what mattered to him, and what he wanted to focus on. To his surprise, those 30 minutes became the most energizing part of his day. He wasn't just writing, he was rediscovering himself. Here's the twist. His newfound sense of purpose didn't make his life easier. His workload didn't shrink, and his challenges didn't magically disappear. What changed was how he approached them. Instead of dreading a long workday, he saw it as an opportunity to provide for his family. The same son who asked that tough question was now the reason behind his perseverance. Purpose turned his daily grind into a series of meaningful steps toward a larger vision. Doesn't that make you wonder? What drives you? When was the last time you felt truly alive, like every action had a purpose? Many of us drift, assuming purpose is some grand revelation waiting to find us. But the Stoics knew better. Purpose isn't a destination. It's a choice you make every day. It's not always glamorous, and sometimes it's as simple as showing up for the people who matter, or pursuing something that lights a fire in your soul. But what if you're stuck, unsure of where to begin? Start small, like he did. You don't need a life-altering plan. Begin with a question. What's one thing you can do today that aligns with what truly matters to you? Maybe it's reconnecting with an old hobby, helping a friend, or even journaling your thoughts. The science behind purpose is clear. It activates reward centers in the brain, releasing dopamine and giving you the energy to keep going. And when you align your actions with something meaningful, the days feel lighter, even when they're hard. So ask yourself, what would your life look like if each day started with intention instead of obligation? Picture yourself, years from now, looking back. Wouldn't you want to know that your choices weren't just about surviving, but about truly living? Purpose isn't just an idea, it's a compass. And the best part? You already have it within you to set your course. Number 3, emotional resilience, the secret to defying stress and time. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, said Epictetus. These words were a lifeline for him, a man who once believed his stress was a result of everything going wrong around him. His job was demanding, his relationships felt strained, and the news on TV was a constant reminder of the world's chaos. If life was a storm, he felt like a tiny boat about to capsize. But was it really the storm, or was it his lack of an anchor? One day, in the middle of a work crisis, his boss delivered an email with the subject line, "Urgent." Yes, with 3 exclamation points. He felt his pulse spike immediately. The old him would have gone into full panic mode, rushing to fix everything, fearing the worst. But instead, he took a deep breath. He remembered something he'd read about emotional resilience, how stress doesn't come from external events, but from our perception of them. He thought, what would Epictetus do? Probably not lose his cool over an email. With that in mind, he opened the message calmly, and guess what? It wasn't an emergency. His boss had just overused capital letters again. That moment was small, but it shifted something in him. It wasn't the world creating his stress, it was how he reacted to it. Now here's where it gets interesting. He started applying this mindset everywhere. When traffic made him late, he didn't grip the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. Instead, he used the time to reflect. When someone criticized him unfairly, he didn't react defensively. He asked himself, is this criticism even true? Often, it wasn't. Emotional resilience became his secret weapon, and soon the things that used to drain him barely made a dent. But let's be honest, developing resilience isn't always easy. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wasn't just philosophical fluff. It was a practical roadmap. Emotional resilience isn't about pretending things are fine. It's about grounding yourself in what you can control and letting go of what you can't. Science backs this up too. Studies in neuroscience show that resilience reduces activity in the amygdala, the part of your brain that triggers fight or flight responses. Instead, it strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for logical thinking and decision-making. When you practice resilience, your brain literally rewires itself to handle stress better. Isn't that fascinating? But here's the twist. Resilience doesn't make life easier. It doesn't prevent challenges or remove obstacles. What it does is change how you face them. He discovered this when his car broke down on a rainy Monday morning. The old him would have seen this as the universe conspiring against him. But now, he laughed, called for a tow, and used the waiting time to finish a book he'd been meaning to read. The situation hadn't changed, but his response had, and that made all the difference. Doesn't that make you wonder? How often do we let small annoyances steal our peace? How many moments do we waste replaying arguments in our heads or stressing over things outside our control? Imagine what your life could look like if you approached every challenge with calm and clarity instead of frustration. Think about the last time you felt overwhelmed. Was it truly the situation, or was it your reaction to it? Resilience isn't just about staying calm, it's about reclaiming your power. The next time life throws you a curveball, pause. Take a breath. Remind yourself of what's within your control. After all, isn't it better to be the captain of your ship, navigating through storms, rather than a passenger swept away by the waves? Number 4. Kindness and gratitude. Emotional liberation for inner peace. Do not then be grieved, for all things will be accomplished in their time, said Epictetus, pointing us toward acceptance and gratitude. These words echoed in her mind as she navigated what felt like an endless series of frustrations. Her days were packed with minor annoyances, forgotten deadlines, rude coworkers, traffic jams, but it was the smallest thing that finally broke her. One morning, she spilled coffee on her shirt right before an important meeting. For a moment, it felt like the universe was conspiring against her. She wanted to scream, "Why me?" But instead she froze, took a deep breath, and thought, maybe there's a lesson here. Later that day, still annoyed, she stumbled across a video on stoicism. It wasn't life-changing at first glance, but a single idea stood out. Gratitude is the antidote to resentment. The concept seemed too simple to be true. Could appreciating what you have really shift your perspective? That evening, she decided to give it a try. Instead of focusing on the frustrations of the day, she wrote down 3 things she was thankful for. Her health, her supportive friend who sent her a funny meme when she needed it most, and, ironically, the coffee, despite the stain. Here's where the unexpected twist comes in. She didn't just feel a little better. She started seeing things differently. Over time, she realized the spilled coffee wasn't the problem. It was her reaction to it. She began to notice how often she let small annoyances pile up, overshadowing everything good in her life. And with every gratitude list she wrote, the weight of those frustrations seemed to lift. What if she had spent less energy complaining and more time appreciating? The Stoics believed in this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." For her, this was no longer just a nice quote. It became a practice, a shift from seeing life as a series of obligations to recognizing it as a gift. Gratitude wasn't just a way to feel better, it became her compass. Kindness followed naturally. She started noticing how much easier it was to let go of grudges. Once, when a coworker made a snide comment, instead of retaliating, she simply smiled and moved on. It wasn't weakness, it was liberation. What good would come from clinging to negativity? Wouldn't it just pull her down further? She realized kindness wasn't just for others, it was for herself. Holding on to resentment only drained her energy, while forgiveness allowed her to move forward with peace. Science supports this ancient wisdom. Studies show that practicing gratitude boosts serotonin and dopamine levels, the same chemicals that improve mood and promote relaxation. Kindness, too, has a measurable impact, releasing oxytocin, the love hormone that strengthens social bonds and reduces stress. Isn't it fascinating how the principles of Stoicism align with modern neuroscience? But let's not overlook the humor in all this. She often laughed at herself, especially when she caught old habits creeping back. One evening after writing her gratitude list, she muttered, "I guess even coffee stains have a purpose." It became a running joke among her friends, a lighthearted reminder of how far she'd come. Now think about your own life. How often do you let small frustrations rob you of peace? What would change if, instead of reacting with anger, you chose gratitude? Imagine forgiving someone who's wronged you, not for their sake, but for yours. Could you let that weight go? The next time life feels overwhelming, pause. Write down 3 things you're thankful for. It doesn't have to be grand: a sunny day, a kind word, or even a perfectly brewed cup of coffee. Start small, because as she discovered, gratitude and kindness aren't just habits, they're tools for liberation. Wouldn't you rather carry peace than resentment? Number 5, the power of positivity, seeing light in every situation. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." These words circled in his mind as he sat staring at his broken-down car on the side of the road. It was supposed to be a simple commute home, but instead here he was, stuck on the shoulder, watching cars zoom by. Frustration bubbled up as he imagined the repair bill and the wasted time. Then, something clicked. What if this wasn't just a problem, but an opportunity? A chance to practice what he'd been reading about in Stoic philosophy, the power of positivity. At first, it felt silly. How could sitting next to a smoking engine possibly have a silver lining? But he took a deep breath, leaned back in his seat, and decided to look at the moment differently. The traffic noise faded into the background as he realized he hadn't had a moment of quiet all week. With nothing else to do, he pulled out a book he'd been meaning to finish for months. It wasn't the evening he planned, but in that unexpected pause, he felt a rare sense of calm. The twist came when the tow truck driver arrived. He wasn't just there to fix the car. He shared a story about how he found joy in helping people stranded on the road. "It's funny," the driver said. "Most people are so stressed, they don't even realize they're getting a break from the madness of life." Those words stuck with him. The inconvenience became a reminder of how often we let setbacks steal our peace when they could just as easily teach us patience or gratitude. Doesn't that make you wonder how many times you've let a bad moment ruin your day? What would happen if, instead of resisting life's challenges, you looked for the light in them? Positivity isn't about ignoring hardship, it's about shifting your perspective. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you could ask, "What can I learn from this?" The Stoics were masters of reframing. They knew that the way we interpret events shapes our reality. Modern psychology agrees. Studies show that positive thinking rewires the brain, strengthening pathways that help us handle stress better. The more we focus on possibilities instead of obstacles, the more resilient and energized we become. So the next time life throws you an unexpected curveball, take a page from his book. Literally, if you're stuck with one. Pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what good can come from this? Imagine how much lighter your days would feel if you carried that mindset. Isn't it worth a try? Number 6. Adaptability, thriving in a changing world. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." These words echoed in his head as he stared at his office computer screen. The email was clear. The company was restructuring, and his position was being eliminated. For a moment, it felt like the ground beneath him had shifted. What was he supposed to do now? Panic crept in, but instead of letting it take over, he paused. He remembered reading about adaptability, a skill the Stoics revered, and decided to approach the situation differently. He didn't have a plan yet, but he knew one thing. He couldn't control the job loss, only his response to it. So, after a deep breath, he closed the laptop and went for a walk. As he passed a park nearby, he couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. Well, he thought, at least I finally have some free time to enjoy this view. It was a small moment, but it shifted his mindset. Instead of dwelling on what he lost, he began thinking about what he could gain. Maybe this was the push he needed to start something new. Here's the twist. Losing his job turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to him. Without the daily grind holding him back, he revisited an old hobby, photography. What started as a way to pass time became a side business. Within months, he wasn't just making ends meet, he was thriving in a way he hadn't imagined. The Stoic principle of embracing change had transformed what seemed like a setback into an opportunity. But let's be honest, adapting isn't easy, it's uncomfortable, even scary. Yet, as the Stoics knew, life is full of change. Resisting it only creates stress, while embracing it opens the door to growth. Doesn't that make you wonder how many opportunities you might have missed because you clung too tightly to the familiar? How much lighter would life feel if you flowed with change instead of fighting it? Modern science backs this up. Studies on neuroplasticity show that the brain thrives on adaptability. The more you embrace new challenges, the more resilient and flexible your mind becomes. It's not just about surviving change, it's about learning and growing from it. So, the next time life throws you a curveball, remember his story. Ask yourself, what could this change teach you? Imagine standing in a stream. If you resist the current, it pushes harder against you. But if you move with it, you find a rhythm and flow. Isn't it worth finding your flow? Number 7. The modern empath, protecting yourself while staying connected. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." This quote resonated deeply with her as she reflected on another exhausting day. She had always been the one people turned to, the friend who listened, the coworker who stayed late to help, the sibling who dropped everything at a moment's notice. Being an empath felt like her superpower, but lately it felt more like a burden. She wasn't just carrying her own emotions, she was absorbing everyone else's. How could she stay connected to others without losing herself in the process? One evening, after comforting a friend through a breakup and fielding work-related texts well into the night, she realized she was utterly drained. In her exhaustion, she opened a journal and began writing. What she discovered surprised her. She wasn't tired from the tasks themselves, but from how much energy she poured into everyone else. It hit her. She had been giving so much that she had nothing left for herself. This wasn't compassion. It was self-neglect. The twist came when she decided to make a change. Inspired by Stoic teachings, she set a simple boundary: no work emails after 7 p.m. and one day each week dedicated entirely to herself. It felt selfish at first, but as the days passed, she noticed something remarkable. She wasn't just more energized, she was more present. The same people who leaned on her now appreciated her even more because she could show up for them fully, not as a shell of herself. Doesn't that make you wonder how often we confuse self-sacrifice with true kindness? How many times have you said yes when your heart was screaming no? The Stoics taught that balance is key. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." For her, this meant learning to say no, not out of selfishness, but to protect the energy she needed to genuinely connect with others. Even modern neuroscience supports this idea. Studies show that overloading on others' emotions activates mirror neurons in the brain, leading to emotional fatigue. Setting boundaries isn't just good for mental health, it's essential for maintaining meaningful relationships. After all, how can you pour into others if your own cup is empty? Her journey wasn't without humor. One day a friend joked, "You've got boundaries now? Who are you?" She laughed, replying, "Someone who finally gets 8 hours of sleep." The light-hearted moment reminded her that protecting her energy didn't mean losing her connections, it meant deepening them. So, what about you? When was the last time you prioritized yourself? Imagine how much more you could give if you allowed yourself to rest and recharge. The next time you feel overwhelmed, pause and ask yourself, is this my burden to carry? Remember, staying connected doesn't mean losing yourself. Wouldn't it feel free to protect your energy while still being there for the people who matter? Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. This wisdom perfectly captures the heart of today's journey. We've explored how reconnecting with nature, finding purpose, building emotional resilience, practicing kindness, embracing positivity, adapting to change, and setting boundaries can transform the way you live. These are not just abstract ideas, they're tools for cultivating inner peace and timeless energy, tools you can start using today. Imagine what your life could look like if you made even one of these practices a daily habit. Think of the clarity that comes from purpose, the calm that follows resilience, and the joy of finding light in every situation. It's not about perfection, but about progress, small steps that build a stronger, more centered version of yourself. So, where will you begin? Will you take a moment to step into nature, set a new goal, or pause the next time stress creeps in? The beauty of Stoic philosophy is that it meets you wherever you are, helping you thrive no matter what life throws your way. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these lessons resonated with you the most? Have you already started applying Stoic principles in your life? Share your journey in the comments below. Your story could inspire someone else. If this video sparked something in you, don't forget to like, subscribe to Stoic Narratives Official, and join us for more wisdom that uplifts and empowers. Until next time, keep thriving.